What kind of R&B superstar lies about his marriage, cheats on his wife, goes bankrupt, and ends up changing diapers in a church nursery? No, seriously. How do you go from Grammy-nominated chart topper to broke, betrayed, and nearly forgotten, except by the IRS? Montell Jordan wasn't just your average 90s R&B singer. He was the vibe. This Is How We Do It wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural reset. But while we were all blasting his music at cookouts and clubs, behind the scenes, Montell was building a house of lies, and it was about to come crashing down. Because what the public didn't know was this: he was faking being single to boost record sales, cheating on his wife while preaching Christian values, secretly getting liposuction after blowing through all his money, and then being hit with a six-figure tax bill that exposed everything. But here's where it gets weirder. After nearly losing his life in a freak concert accident and his marriage in a late-night confession, Montell didn't just apologize and move on. He walked away from the spotlight completely, disappeared into the church world with a whole new identity. So what really happened to Montell Jordan? Was it a fall from grace or a carefully planned reinvention? Because the guy you remember singing, "This Is How We Do It," he doesn't even like talking about that part of his life anymore. And trust me, you're gonna want to hear why. When Montell Jordan first popped off in the 90s, he had everything the industry wanted: the height of a basketball star, the voice of a soul singer, and just enough street edge to make you believe he might have come up through Compton with NWA. But here's the plot twist. From the jump, Montell was living a lie. And it wasn't just some PR fluff. This was a calculated industry scam. See, Montell was already married to his college sweetheart, Kristen Hudson. Yup, ring, vows, the whole thing. But Def Jam wasn't having it. The label straight up told him to pretend his wife didn't exist. Why? Because according to music exec logic, R&B heartthrobs can't be married. You can't have women screaming your name and throwing bras on stage if they know your wife's backstage with snacks in a stroller, right? So what did Montell do? He went along with it. He told the world Kristen was just his manager. He let go of his Christian values, ignored his gut, and stepped right into a carefully curated fantasy life. All in the name of fame. And it worked, at first, because This Is How We Do It exploded. 7 weeks at #1, platinum plaques, Grammy nominations. The guy became the face of party R&B overnight. But that lie, it didn't just stay on stage, it followed him home. And the cracks in Montell's double life were about to get real messy, real fast. Because while he was posing as the single, smooth R&B bachelor, Montell Jordan was cheating on his real-life wife with fans, on tour buses, in hotel rooms, everywhere. And Kristen, she knew none of it. Yet. But don't worry, she found out. And what she did next wasn't just shocking, it changed Montell's entire life. You ever heard the saying, "Be careful what you wish for"? Yeah, Montell Jordan wished for the fame. And when it hit, it came with champagne, screaming fans, private jets, and a whole lot of trouble. By 1995, This Is How We Do It wasn't just a hit, it was the anthem. You couldn't walk into a club, cookout, high school dance, or gas station without hearing that beat drop. And with that level of success came a kind of celebrity Montell wasn't ready for. He went from being the broke college grad with a church background to a certified R&B star with women literally throwing themselves at him. And he didn't say no. According to Montell himself, the combination of free alcohol, touring, and the constant ego boost became a dangerous cocktail. He was married, but that didn't stop him from sleeping around. A lot. And the worst part, he wasn't even hiding it from himself. He knew it was wrong. He felt the guilt, but he kept doing it anyway, because when the spotlight's hot and the money's flowing, morals become optional. And then, boom, karma came knocking. In 1996, during a show with Boyz II Men in Vancouver, Montell walked on stage and noticed something was off. Red lights, people plugging their ears, something was about to go down, and it did. Fireworks exploded. Montell panicked, backed up, and fell off the stage. We're not talking a stumble. We're talking a straight-up fall onto the back of his head from 7 feet up. He thought it was over. The crowd? Silent. Even Boyz II Men stopped the show and asked 13,000 fans to pray for him on the spot. And somehow, some way, he walked away with no broken bones, no concussion, just a sore neck and a head full of questions. Was this a sign? A warning? A literal fall from grace? Montell said it felt like God was trying to get his attention. But instead of changing his ways, he doubled down on the image. More hits, more tours, more distractions, and behind the scenes, his personal life was collapsing. Because his biggest scandal was still waiting for him? At home. Fame will make you feel invincible until it literally drops you on your head. In 1996, Montell Jordan was on tour with Boys II Men. The crowd was electric, the lights were flashing, and Montell was riding high off the success of This Is How We Do It. But on that night in Vancouver, something felt off. As he walked toward the stage, he saw red lights blinking in the distance. Then, strangely, he noticed a few guys on the side plugging their ears. Before he could even process what was happening, boom! Pyro exploded across the stage. Startled, Montell stumbled backward, trying to escape the sparks. But instead of hitting a solid wall, he fell through a flimsy black curtain and dropped 7 feet straight down, landing square on the back of his head. The music stopped. The lights went dark. The crowd, dead silent. For a few seconds, everyone thought he was gone. Like, actually gone. And while people rushed to help him, Montell said he had this surreal moment to connect with God. Laying there, unable to move, all he could think was, is this it? Boys II Men stopped the entire show. They got on the mic and asked 13,000 fans to pray for him. Right there. Paramedics came. They braced for the worst. But somehow, Montell walked away. No concussion, no fractures, just soreness, and a whole new level of confusion. To this day, he calls it a miracle. And let's be honest, it kind of was. But here's where it gets interesting. You'd think that kind of near-death wake-up call would trigger a complete life overhaul, right? A return to faith. A fresh start. A new direction? Not quite. Montell acknowledged the moment, sure. He even said it felt like God was trying to get his attention. But instead of pulling back, he pushed harder. More tours, more music, more infidelity. It was like he was trying to outrun his own conviction. And the faster he ran, the faster his life unraveled. Because even though he survived that fall, he was headed straight for another one. And this time, it wouldn't be physical. It would be emotional, financial, and public. Montell Jordan built his brand on smooth talk, clean vocals, and that choir boy charm. But behind the silky hooks and church upbringing was a man knee-deep in lies. His whole career had been built on a false image, R&B's tall, dark, and available dream guy. Except, he wasn't available. He was married to Kristen. The same woman who'd been with him before the fame, before the record deals, before he was even Montell Jordan. And while the world swooned, Kristen sat behind the scenes, managing the business, raising their kids, holding it all together, until one day, she couldn't. Montell had been cheating for years. Groupies, tour flings, late-night hotel meetups, and Kristen had no clue until a mutual friend threatened to expose everything. That's when Montell made the boldest move of his career. On September 20th, 2000, the night before Kristen's birthday, he sat her down and told her everything. No sugarcoating, no excuses, just raw, devastating truth. And Kristen, she left, packed her bags, caught a flight to LA, and left Montell sitting alone in Atlanta with a marriage on life support. And let's be real, most people wouldn't have blamed her for never coming back. But here's where the story takes a twist no one expected. Kristen returned. She said she prayed on it, and God told her to fight for her marriage. It wasn't a fairy tale fix. Trust was shattered. Emotions were wrecked. And to make matters worse, shortly after reconciling, Kristen became pregnant, but suffered a heartbreaking miscarriage in 2002. Montell was still trying to juggle a declining music career, personal guilt, and the wreckage of a relationship that had taken years to build and only moments to destroy. In 2003, he finally broke away from Def Soul after clashing with the label on creative direction. He signed to a new label, hoping that a fresh start would fix everything. But spoiler alert, it didn't. Because the real problems weren't in the music, they were in the mirror, and Montell was about to face every single one of them. By 2004, Montell Jordan was no longer riding high. He was barely hanging on. After stepping away from Def Soul, losing creative control, and nearly losing his marriage, Montell tried to bounce back with a new label, a new album, and a new attitude. But behind closed doors, his life was spiraling fast, and nothing could stop the free fall. Let's talk numbers first. Montell and Kristen were hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Their lifestyle? Unsustainable. The checks, not clearing like they used to. And the fame? Fading faster than anyone expected. In 2004, they filed for bankruptcy. It wasn't just a bad business year. This was full-blown financial collapse. The same guy who once had platinum records and packed arenas was now trying to keep the lights on and avoid foreclosure. And just when they thought it couldn't get worse, it did. In 2005, their dream home in Atlanta caught on fire, literally. it burned down, leaving behind nothing but the garage walls. Then came the car repossession, a public humiliation for someone who once bragged about riding clean in his hits. Montell's image was crumbling, and so was his confidence. So, like any celebrity trying to reclaim control, he turned to cosmetic surgery. Yes, Montell Jordan, 6 feet 8 inches of smooth R&B, secretly underwent 2 liposuction procedures. His weight had been fluctuating. The stress, the loss, the fall from fame, it was written all over his body, and he tried to erase it with a scalpel. But plastic surgery doesn't fix a broken career, and it definitely doesn't fix the IRS. In 2012, years after he'd sold his music catalog to pay down debts, the IRS came knocking again. They hit Montell with a bill for $617,000 in back taxes from 1999 to 2001. Montell told TMZ he had already paid the debt, but the money was tied up in his 2004 bankruptcy case. Translation: it was a bureaucratic nightmare, and his name was all over the headlines for all the wrong reasons. This was the final gut punch, the kind that makes you either crumble or change your life completely. Montell chose the second option, and what he did next, no one saw coming. By the end of the 2000s, Montell Jordan had every reason to disappear quietly. The money, gone, the marriage, strained, the career, basically on life support. But in 2010, just when most people assumed he was finished, Montell had one final twist up his sleeve, and it had nothing to do with a comeback album or reality TV. Nope. Montell Jordan, Mr. This Is How We Do It, decided to walk away from R&B completely, and not because the industry turned its back on him, because he chose to leave it all behind. Here's what happened. In 2010, Montell and his family joined Victory World Church in Atlanta. He was still flirting with a return, had a new album lined up, a reality show in development, but then came a 21-day spiritual fast. And during that fast, Montell says he heard from God, like literally heard the call. And what God told him? It's time to let it go. Let go of the music, the fame, the spotlight, everything. So Montell did something that shocked even his closest friends. He officially retired from R&B. He started volunteering at the church, changing diapers in the nursery, singing worship songs during Sunday services, and then they offered him the job of worship pastor. From that point on, Montell Jordan wasn't just a retired singer. He became a minister. He formed a church music group called Victory World Music, released 2 Christian albums, and started mentoring married couples with Kristen. Gone were the flashy suits and party anthems. In their place, Bible verses, marriage conferences, and Sunday morning sermons. It was either the most sincere redemption arc or the boldest reinvention in R&B history. Because let's be real, most artists try to cling to their fame forever. Montell Jordan walked away from it on purpose, but don't get it twisted. Just because he left the spotlight doesn't mean the spotlight forgot him, especially not when the IRS came back for round 2. So what happens when an R&B icon trades fame for faith? Montell Jordan might not be topping the Billboard charts anymore, but he's still standing, and that alone is kind of a miracle. Let's talk facts. His estimated net worth? Right now, it hovers around $500,000, a modest number compared to the platinum plaques and sold-out tours of the 90s. And sure, it's a far cry from what he could have had if he played the game the way the industry wanted him to. But Montell would tell you he already won, just not in the way you think. He left behind the scandals, the lies, the IRS drama, the fake bachelor image, the Hollywood madness. Today, Montell holds the title of executive pastor. He and Kristen, yes, the same woman he almost lost, now run marriage ministry programs, helping couples navigate their own messes with honesty and faith. And here's the kicker. His church bio, it barely even mentions his R&B career. That's right, This Is How We Do It. The song that defined a generation gets maybe a footnote because the Montell Jordan of today doesn't want to be remembered as a one-hit wonder or a fallen star. He wants to be remembered as a husband who fought for his marriage, a man who got off the stage and into the pulpit, someone who owned his mistakes and then built something real from the wreckage. But let's be honest, to most of the world, he'll always be that guy. The voice of every throwback party, the smooth crooner who turned Friday nights into a whole vibe, the man who made This Is How We Do It a permanent part of pop culture history. Redemption story, reinvention, cautionary tale? Honestly, maybe it's all 3. He had the fame, the hits, and the lies, then traded it all for a Bible and a second chance. This is the true story of how Mr. This Is How We Do It did it.